What's up everybody, welcome back to another Overwatch discussion video, and today we're kicking things off by talking about XQC and his recent ban, and I'll be giving you guys my take on whether or not I think he's officially done with Overwatch. Then after that we're changing gears and discussing something that I've actually never talked about here on the channel. Instead of talking about Overwatch League or professional Overwatch, I wanted to shake things up by talking a little bit about the casual perspective of Overwatch and some of my personal experiences with the community and why everyone thinks that it's so toxic, including myself. And also I wanted to talk a little bit about the competitive ladder and why it's just so horrible sometimes. That's what I have for all of you today, so without wasting any more time, sit back and relax as we dive straight into things. So kicking things off with XQC, for those of you who don't know what happened to him, basically last week Blizzard banned his Overwatch account, and if I remember correctly it was for abusive chat, and that makes sense because after all XQC really does love to express his opinions fully, sometimes a little too much. But that's besides the point. That's basically why he got banned. He was yelling at his teammates for being garbage. He tends to do that a lot, so I can understand why that would end up happening. What's interesting about this situation is that XQC and a lot of others are saying this ban was kind of undeserved. Obviously, it's deserved kind of in a way since he was talking trash, but usually, as XQC said himself, he gets a few warnings from Blizzard when he talks trash to people in his game, and then the ban comes out, but this time they insta-banned him. There was not a single warning issued, and that alarms me for a couple of reasons. For one, it tells me that the relationship between Blizzard and XQC is only getting worse in the long history that they already have, but also this may or may not have been one of those dumb bans by Blizzard where they don't have sufficient evidence for banning someone and they just do it anyway. And honestly, I think it's really messed up when stuff like that happens because you're wasting time banning XQC for like the billionth time when you could be banning that thrower that's been throwing for the entire season that everyone complains about but remains untouched. But now let's talk about this from Blizzard's point of view. Let's defend them now this time. So in a way, it makes sense why they'd end up banning XQC without giving him much warning because they've warned him so many times in the past, they've already banned him a billion times. You'd think that the guy would learn his lesson by now, but he just doesn't. He keeps running his mouth off, and that's because that's just XQC's personality. It's what he does. He has that alpha mentality. And at the end of the day, if short bans and a bunch of warnings aren't enough to make this guy learn his lesson, then you have to make the punishments even harsher and you have to stop giving him warnings. It's just if you do something we don't like that upsets our player base, then we're going to ban you right away and it's going to be for an even longer period of time. I really don't know whose side to take on this. I don't know if this ban was justified or not, but I do kind of feel bad for XQC. It sucks that he can't play the game for the next month because after all, it is the thing that made him famous and helped him develop this crazy fan base he has. But at the same time, I'm happy for the guy because it's clear he hasn't been having much fun on the game lately. He's kind of been suffering, and I don't blame him. Being a main tank these days is really hard with all the crowd control from Brigitte and Doomfish just punching you and uppercutting you all the time, and then you have Sombros hacking you, always on your butt. It's a real pain to deal with, and there's times where you feel like the game's just out of your control. Like, you're useless and you can do absolutely nothing. I think this ban is actually a blessing in disguise for XQC. This gives him a good opportunity to see how he likes variety streaming for like the next month. And if he does, then he can just quit Overwatch. He doesn't have to play it anymore. And if he doesn't like variety streaming all the time, then he can just go back to playing Overwatch and do the variety every once in a while. And I think it's just really wonderful that now he can go back and play some of those new games that he never had a chance to play because he was always on the Overwatch grind. Or maybe he can go back and play some of his all-time favorite games. And he can even let his chat choose what games to play at times. And speaking of his chat, when he's not playing a multiplayer game, he can focus more on them and interact with them more. I think it's just a really good place for XQC to be in right now. So the question is XQC going to quit Overwatch? And my answer for you guys is, I don't know. Time will tell with this. If he enjoys streaming the variety games a lot, then he could end up quitting the game. But if he realizes that he kind of misses Overwatch after this next month of not playing it, then he'll probably just go back to the way things were before. But whether he quits or not, I think he'll be just fine with the amount of viewership he has. I know some people think that the only reason he has a lot of viewers every night is because of him playing Overwatch, but that's actually not true at all. Most of XQC's viewers are there for him. It's not so much the game that he plays, but because they love watching him play games and the crazy energy he brings, and I don't blame him. I enjoy watching XQC variety streams, I'll admit it. When he played Doki Doki Literature Club, I thought it was hilarious. Honestly, it was great. So I think he'll do just fine no matter what he does. I don't think that he needs Overwatch. I do think, however, that Overwatch needs him. I know that Blizzard kind of hates him for all the crazy things he does, but he brings 10,000 plus viewers like a night on that game. He has been one of the reasons why Twitch has had such high Overwatch viewership. When you're bringing 10,000 plus people into the game, that's really going to help put it more towards the very top of the most viewed games. Go on Twitch and see for yourself. Look at the most viewed games at the moment, and I guarantee you Overwatch will not be in like the top 5 or 6. It'll go way down, and that's because they're missing 10,000 plus viewers from XQC. When you think about it, XQC getting banned is actually a really bad thing for Blizzard. Obviously, they love the idea of not having this guy play their game because they absolutely despise him, but at the same time, they're losing a tremendous amount of viewership by banning him for the next month. I think it's safe to say that this is a win-lose situation for Blizzard. XQC, on the other hand, I think is just fine. There's no reason to be concerned about him at all. Maybe he'll lose a very small percentage of his viewership for those who actually did watch him for Overwatch, but I still think that he'll have like 9,000 plus viewers every time he streams. I don't foresee that changing anytime soon. I think I brought up just about everything I wanted to cover, so with that being said, let me know what you think of this XQC situation in the comments section, and now let us move on to the next subject at hand, and that is the Overwatch community. Usually I don't really have a desire to make this type of video and talk about my personal Overwatch experiences, but after playing some competitive the other day and just getting really upset, probably the most upset I've actually ever gotten while playing the game, I figured why not vent out my frustration to a crowd. So before I start talking about problems I have with the community and just playing Overwatch competitive, I have to talk about the story and as to why I'm making this video to begin with. So basically, like I said, the other day, I was really pumped up to play some competitive on Overwatch because I'd recently gotten placed at Grandmaster for the very first time. I was feeling really good about this season. I got placed at 4.1k. I thought top 500 was a very realistic goal for me this year. But then when I played 6 games, I said I've had enough because I didn't win a single game first off, but that's not really the worst part of it. Every single game that I did lose was because of either a troll or because of throwers or because of just some really negative people. Like after the first game, I was feeling alright. I tied, it was a close game, but then I lost 5 games in a row because of just some really terrible people. Just, oh my god, it was so frustrating. So I remember in the first game, we had a Sombra player who was just barking at me and the rest of the team for playing like trash, and I'll admit it, I made a few mistakes in the game, but I don't think I did anything worth crying over. I got staggered like once or twice, but that's just about it, right? But in a way, I kind of understand his frustration because there was like 5 of us, I believe, in voice chat, and me and him were the only ones talking, and it becomes even more infuriating when we had a Zarya and a Hanzo who were just holding on to their ults for like 2 minutes. It was clear that the Hanzo didn't want to drag him because he knew that Zarya had grav, but the Zarya wasn't grabbing, and because they weren't talking to each other, they really weren't able to plan out their combo till very late in the game. We ended up losing anyway. We could have charged another Dragon Grav combo in that time of them saving their ults. It's okay to point out that your team isn't using ults when they should. Like, I'm fine with that. I'm all for being a leader and saying, hey, we should probably use our Grav Dragon combo. It could be very effective. But this guy was like, you guys suck. You guys are terrible. Why have you not used the combo? And he waited for like 2 minutes to say this too. He could have said it when they both first got their ults, but he decided to wait, right, and just be an absolute jerk about it. And I think that's the wrong way to handle it because it just brings this very sour tone into the game, and it makes everyone just not have as good of a time. Everyone doesn't want to try as hard because this guy's being a jerk. Why should we try our best for this guy? He's an awful human being. He thinks we're all terrible. And that's just not okay. Like, how do you expect to win a game or even a team fight when you keep bickering amongst each other and yelling at each other, calling each other names? You're not going to make any progress if you do that. So the next game I run into 4 people that were just absolutely terrible. 3 of them were in a 3 stack, and then there was just one solo queuer. All really toxic, did not help the team at all with the way they were acting. It was me, I remember getting picked on a lot, but also we had a Widowmaker main. He used to be top 500. He was only in Masters for some reason this season, and we were trying to run GOATs, and the guy wouldn't switch off of Widow, which kind of sucks. We're like, hey, you should probably switch off, but he wouldn't listen. It got to the point where they're screaming at him like, oh, you got to switch off of Widow. We're losing because you're on Widowmaker. He was getting some kills, but they're kind of over-exaggerating. Like, I haven't seen you get a single kill yet. You're ruining this game for us because we're on GOATs. I'm going to start throwing down. It's all your fault. And it just escalated so fast. Then I remember things got even worse, and I started to feel really bad about myself on point B defense on Hanamura when I was playing as Lucio, because after all, I'm a support man. I absolutely adore playing him. But anyway, I had my ultimate ready. I had beat drop ready for disposal when I thought it was necessary, but the problem was, I was very reluctant to use it during our last team fight because Sombra, the enemy Sombra that is, had her EMP ready for deployment, and I knew that the moment I casted my ult, she was just going to counter and just make my ult useless. Like, I just wasted it completely. So I said, I'm going to keep waiting until she uses EMP. She never did. She kept waiting for me to use my ult, so I said, you know what, that's fine. It's a good trade-off. She's not going to use EMP because I'm not using Sound Barrier, so if she doesn't use that game-winning ultimate, then maybe we can turn the tide of battle. But no, my team was like, why aren't you using ult, Lucio? What's wrong with you? And usually, I defend myself and justify my reasoning as to why I wouldn't use beat drop, but I knew I shouldn't even bother wasting my breath on these guys because they'd probably just roast me anyway, even if I did say that. So yeah, we ended up losing that round and the game. It was just not fun at all. I was very, very upset, but I kept my cool because it's not like me to butt heads with other people. I just don't do that. I try and remain positive through it all because sometimes that's what your teammates need. They need positive energy to keep them from tilting and from really giving it their all in a game. But it didn't really work with these guys, unfortunately. So at the time of me playing that game, I thought that all of those 4 people were in a 4 stack. So when I went to avoid one of them, I just happened to have avoided the guy that was actually solo queuing. So guess who I ended up playing with the very next game again with? That's right, the 3 stack. They were back again, and it sucked because we were playing Lijiang Tower, which is my favorite map. I thought nothing could go wrong. I'm going to play Reinhardt or Lucio or whatever my team needs because I'm a flex player at times, and I'm going to be on my favorite map. This is great. And as you all can imagine, that excitement of playing on my favorite map wore off super fast when I saw that 3 stack on my team, but I was willing to stay positive. I said, it's a new game. I have some new teammates surrounding me. It's going to be okay. We don't have that Widow 1 trick for them to yell at anymore. And honestly, things started off okay. When we were on Gardens, we were up 96% to 0. But then everything changed so fast because of one enemy Reinhardt Earthshatter that got like 5 of us and resulted in a team kill. And you'd think that everything would be just fine, right? Because we're literally just one team fight away from winning the round, and the enemy team just captured the point for the first time, so they have to win like 3 or 4 team fights to at least just get it to 99-99, right? But then our team, and by that I mean our 3 stack, realized that our Lucio had Sound Barrier during this fight, and let me tell you, they roasted this poor guy. I felt so bad. All 3 of them were like, Lucio, you suck. Why are you throwing? Why didn't you use beat drop during that earth shatter? And he's like, what did you want me to do? I got shattered. There was no shield in front of me. I couldn't protect any of you. And they're like, why couldn't you have used it before he used earth shatter? And at that point, I was like, really? Why would you say something that dumb? If he did that beat drop before that Reinhardt even thought about shattering, they would have just backed off and waited for our shields to wear off. Like, that's just such a dumb argument if you ask me. You have to have some crazy good prediction skills to use beat drop right before the Reinhardt shatters. That takes some serious skill. And at that point, our Lucio had just had enough. And literally, this is just right after we lost our first team fight. He beat drops in spawn and just starts jumping off the edge of the map every single time he respawns. So needless to say, we ended up losing that, and a sour taste was in my mouth now at this point. But I said, I really want to win a game before I stop playing today. And that was a big mistake because I just lost the last couple of games that I played. And I said, that's enough. I'm done. I'm very mad at this game right now. And it honestly sucks. I've been on a good streak until recently of not running into a lot of throwers and having a lot of success and having some positive teammates that are in voice chat that communicate with you. It was wonderful. And then I ran into these people, and now I'm reluctant to go and play competitive yet again. And I think that's the worst. To be scared to play a game that you love because you're nervous that people are going to throw your games, it's the absolute worst. And I honestly could just keep going for like hours about some of the crazy stories that have happened to me in the past. I remember there was this other one in particular, I'll just tell one other short one, where there was a Mei main on the other team, and I don't know why this happened, but someone else on the other team wanted to play Mei, or maybe they just didn't want him to play it, and as a result, the guy just refused to play the game. He just sat in spawn and watched until he got Mei back. And needless to say, that team ended up losing. We got an easy W off of that. And that just sucks. Like, trolls and stuff like that are just the absolute worst. People that refuse to play the game because they can't get one character. Like, I understand. You should have the right to play a character that you want to play. That's the point of the game, right? You want to have fun by playing someone that you enjoy. But if you're going to get salty and just throw games because of it, that's just not right. I think that's taking it way too far. And that's the whole point about the Overwatch community. There's so many of these trolls and toxic people, and it's just the absolute worst. And I know there's like a variety of reasons why people act this way. Like I said, some people just want to play a character, and when they don't get to play that character, they get really mad and throw the game away. Some people just get really salty because they think they hard carry the entire game and their team's just useless, and that's an understandable feeling. When you work so hard, you put in so much effort, you get a lot of crazy kills, but your team still loses because none of them can do anything at all. I mean, just look at the Florida Mayhem for an example. I'm sure Saya player got frustrated at times when he made all these nutty Widowmaker and McCree plays, but his team lost almost every single game. I know that sometimes your teammates really aren't as competent as you. It happens, but most of the time that's not the case, unfortunately. And it's also not the case most of the time where you can carry your team to victory. Every once in a while, sure, it happens, but most of the time, you're going to need to have teammates making some plays and helping you out a little bit. And as crazy as it may sound, sometimes even if you do get a bunch of kills and make all these insane plays during a game, it still could very well be partially your fault that your team doesn't end up winning the game, or that you just don't have a lot of success. And I say that because, for one, maybe you're a bad communicator, for an example, but also, maybe, just maybe, you could, like I was talking about earlier, stop blaming your teammates and calling them bad, because that just leaves everyone in the game on a sour note, and it makes them not want to try as hard. They feel like trash, and it's all because of you, really. So in a way, it's your fault that your team isn't performing as well as you'd like them to. And instead of insulting people for not playing too well, try giving them some nice advice for a change. Don't have mean intent in it. Make that clear too. Be like, I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm not trying to say you're bad, but maybe you should try this instead of what you're doing now. Try positioning yourself here instead. Hey, Reinhardt, stop charging him by yourself without telling anyone. Tell the Zarya to bubble you before you go, and it could really help and make all of our lives easier. But no. Instead, people just end up really taking things way too far, escalating things far too quickly because they've been upset over just having bad teammates for like the last 10 games or whatever, the last month. They're sick and tired of it, so they're going to act toxic. They're done acting positive. And this type of behavior just goes full circle. It's just a never-ending cycle. It's just a huge chain reaction that goes off when you decide to throw, or when you decide to start yelling at people, because now they're going to do what you first did. You got upset because maybe someone else called you trash, and now they're going to do the same thing because you're calling them trash, or maybe you're stealing their favorite hero away from them. You're not letting them play Widowmaker, for an example. Now they're going to throw in future games, and in the one they're in currently. It just keeps going, and it never stops. And it's crazy because I really don't know what the solution is to this problem. Sure, you could do role queue, but then again, some people really do like to solo queue. They don't care about any of that stuff. They just want to play and have fun. They don't want to go into voice chat. They want to play Soldier 76 or whatever it is the whole time. And I don't know if a role select system will solve that problem. I think it could solve some of the problems because maybe there'll be a lot less fighting. You can play the role that you want and then be with other people that play the role they want to. Everything's fine. You have a decent team. And if it doesn't work out, you just leave, right? It's honestly really scary to think that Blizzard really doesn't have a lot of the solutions yet, or at least they haven't revealed any of their solutions to these problems. Some people really think they just care more about the Overwatch League at this point. That's their moneymaker. I kind of think that as well, but that could change in the future. You never know. Maybe in like the next year or so they could come out with role select finally, or something similar to that that makes us happy. It's very hard to satisfy this community, and that's understandable because it's just so hard to get rid of all the issues. There's so many to deal with. I truly do hope that Blizzard one day finally makes everyone happy. I'm sure it won't be for a long time, but if that day ever comes, oh man, it'll be great, won't it? And honestly, I could probably keep going on and on all day long about this, but I want to cut the video here so the video isn't too long. So I hope you guys enjoyed this content today. If you did, make sure to hit that like button. Also hit that subscribe button if you're new. And while you're at it, hit that bell and enable those notifications so you don't miss when the next Overwatch discussion video goes up. And don't forget to comment all of your opinions on this video today. And until the next one, I'll catch all of you amazing people later. Peace.